You want me to read this? Alright. Jigsaw Radio is a work of instant fiction. All characters and other entities appearing in this work are fictitious. Any resemblance to real persons, dead or alive, or other real-life entities, past or present, is purely coincidental or employed for the purposes of satire. Please listen responsibly. Does that mean I'm fictional?
Hello, you're listening to Jigsaw Radio. I'm Tara Gracie. Today's Jigsaw Radio is sponsored by glassware. You know the kind. It's in your cupboard right now. It holds beverages, perhaps marbles or change, loose change or otherwise. Glassware. You know that you love it, you just haven't bought any in a while. Maybe change that. Glassware sponsoring Jigsaw Radio today. We have a good show for you today. Today we're going to be asking a lot of interesting, fascinating questions with Dr. Aloysius Kranium. But first we'll go to the news from your local affiliates.
Hello, this is Eva Caballero with the news. I'm being told that I'm supposed to say that I'm sitting in for Chet Burrows, even though he's been sitting in for Jim Rudwing, who's been missing for some time. That's done. Now the news. The heat here in East Grumsley has been abating, finally. People's feet are no longer sticking to the pavement. The pavement is no longer sticking back to people's feet. Shoe stores have been seeing a decline in sales as footwear has gone unmelted for at least 2 days. This weekend should be much nicer, although there is still a partial heat wave in effect just on a block left of Chesterfield Avenue. Protests today sparked by an arrest of a mole person who had come to indeed protest earlier protests. The mole person in question is saying that they had every right to be where they were and that we had to share the planet up and down. The protests broke out as citizens of East Grumsley came out in support of the mole person against police wishes. A new super diet is going through East Grumsley. Everyone is seeming to get into the hot weather treat by trying to beat the heat with a popsicle diet. The popsicle diet does not appear to have any benefit whatsoever on the health of East Grumsley citizens, but they say, and I quote, "That's just what we have to do, man. That's just what we have to do." In financial news, as stated before, those shoe stores seeing some downward profits this week as shoes are not spontaneously combusting into flame in the heat. But, remarkably, ceiling fans are going up, literally and figuratively, as well as the aforementioned popsicles. Most of the economy of East Grumsley seems to be very reactionary during these times of extreme weather. Speaking of weather, the rest of the week here in East Grumsley should be much more pleasant, with the highs only reaching 40 Celsius at the worst. We're hoping. Sydney Banks is hiding in a bunker. From East Grumsley, I'm Eva Caballero, sitting in for Chet Burrows, who's been sitting in for Jim Red Ring. Back to Tara Gracie with Ask Dr. Kranium.
Thank you, Ava. Dr. Kranium. An ambitious sort of mad scientist. As he would explain, he's no stranger to mad science, although he is not evil. He would be very clear about that. Tonight, he has come to us once again through one of his fantastic wormholes, transmitting from some unknown, faraway stars, wherever he happens to be trapped this week. Dr. Kranium, are you there?
Yes, Turnip. I'm hearing you loud and clear. My science is very strong today.
Well, that's good. Well, Dr. Kranium, I'm afraid that we have so many questions, we're just going to have to jump right into it.
You mean we have to skip all the incredible public radio small talk before we get into the content of the show at hand?
It looks like that way.
What a shame. It's almost like my invention worked.
What's that?
Never mind. Get to the questions.
Okay, well, our first question is from Valerie. Dear Dr. Kranium, I have been receiving lots of junk mail at my new home. Even worse, I've been given 2 copies of each piece of junk mail. But none of them feature anything I want or need, and I just wish it would stop. I've left a note saying, "No ads, please," but nothing works. How do I make them stop?
Well, Valerian, yes? Okay. Valerian route, I believe that what you need to do is move. If moving is not an option, well, if you're receiving 2 pieces of each piece of junk mail, what I would do if I were in your position is I would go into the lab and I would create a machine which takes each piece of junk mail that's a duplicate and turns one of them into an anti-junk mail, which then radiates through quantum entanglement through the postal service so that every piece of junk mail that has a duplicate going to the same address vaporizes the other one in a small flash of atomic energy. Now, if you are a very conscientious homeowner and you can wait a bit, it would be good to somehow harness this energy as opposed to unleashing it upon the good, hard-working humans that work in the postal service. But that would be what I would attempt first, is try and make one of the elements of junk mail an anti-junk mail so it eliminates itself before it reaches your floor. Next question.
Yes, another one from Valerie. Dr. Kranium, would you please elaborate on what your doctorate is in? I've been thinking of going back to school to add some official-looking letters to my name, and I'm looking for inspiration.
Well, if you want to add letters to your name, just add letters to your name. I've taken some letters out of my name, to be quite honest. I don't much care for the use of my full name, so I just go by Dr. Kranium. There, letters removed. But if you're looking for a doctorate, mad science all the way. The doctorates are harder to come by. You have to find a very special sort of university that has the appropriate programs for the mad science doctorates, and oftentimes there's a long internship process, and, well, to be quite honest, most of the accredited universities that have mad science programs do cater to the evil villain end of mad science. I believe, Terabundier, that you mentioned at the beginning of the show that I'm not an evil mad scientist, and I make this very clear every time I appear for any length of time in the media. I am not evil. I am simply a mad scientist practicing mad science. I do not want to take over the world, frankly. I can barely keep track of my lab. I can barely keep track of myself these days. So, did I answer the question? I'm just going to assume I did. Carry on, Turnip.
Yes, this question is from Jay. What is life like on Kepler 452b? Are there cars? Do they have popcorn? Is there an America?
Well, that is a fascinating question, actually. Juversh, yes, Kepler, the whole Kepler system is rife with Earth-like planets, most of which I believe will or have or can or won't sustain life. So 452b I am not entirely familiar with. The package deal that I got through the wormhole travel agency only took me to the other side of the Kepler system. But I've heard good things. I don't know if there's popcorn. There is no America. One is already too much for the universe. But there is a form of transportation. They don't call them cars, but they function very similarly in that you get into them and they can take you places. But they don't call them cars because, frankly, cars is just a very strange word. If you think about it, just say cars. 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 Say it with me, Tina.
Cars. I don't even know what I'm saying now, Dr. Kranium.
You see what I mean? It's a terrible name for a mode of transport. I rather like four-wheeled, semi-autonomous vehicular units, but it's a bit too long for an everyday conversation. I believe I answered the question. Let's go to the next question. Yes.
Yes. This one is from Katie. And it looks like it's a challenge.
Challenge in a question.
Well, just bear with her. She's asking, how does gravity work? 3 seconds, go.
How does gravity work? Like a waterbed.
That was less than 3 seconds.
If I'm going to be limited to 3 seconds, I'm going to get it done as quickly and efficiently as possible. If you'd like, I could actually explicate my answer.
Well, if you think that we have time.
I believe that we have time to explain gravity for all of the listeners at home.
So, Dr. Kranium, how is gravity like a waterbed?
Well, you see, think of a waterbed. Think of getting into a waterbed. A waterbed, before you get into it, it appears to be a solid surface, much like the fabric of reality. See, this is the metaphor that I'm using. The waterbed is the fabric of reality. It is the time-space continuum, and it has, I don't know, Empire Strike Back sheets. Once you put an object on the waterbed, depending on the mass of the object, see, it will depress into the waterbed. It will go down further if it has more mass. If it's like a marble, it probably won't do much. If it's a human body, it will depress more. If it's a grand piano, it could actually tear through the fabric of reality, so I don't really want to explain that right now. But when you put another object on that waterbed, if it has a comparable mass, it is possible there will be an equilibrium and both objects will sink into the waterbed at a similar depth and not affect each other much at all. However, if the object placed on the waterbed is of less mass than the object already on it, it will likely hit the waterbed and roll towards the person or thing that is already on the waterbed. If the thing placed on the waterbed has more mass than the thing previously placed, the reverse action is true. Gravity works almost exactly like this, only with slightly fewer leaks when using it with scissors. Next question.
Yes. This one from Lazy Listener. Dear Dr. Kranium, do you think we will one day be able to use quantum entanglement to remotely turn on and off household appliances and lights? Seems better than the clapper.
Quantum entanglement, it's nothing to be trifled with. It's actually a bit of how I got into my own predicament. If I could use quantum entanglement to turn on and off appliances, I would be home by now. Let's just leave it at that.
Fair enough. Dear Dr. Kranium, this is from Frustrated Alchemist, by the way. Dear Dr. Kranium, does fusion technology mean there is a future for turning lead into gold?
Why would you want to turn lead into gold? This seems like a ridiculous concept. Alchemy, well, you know, alchemy gets a bad rap. Alchemy, in many respects, is both the birth of science and the birth of mad science. It is both the first area where we started applying a scientific method to random experimentation, wondering what would happen. And also the birth of the concept of mad science in terms of completely ridiculous prospects with very little results. And if it actually works, then it seems like magic. That said, fusion technology, well, mostly good for compacting things into other things, and mostly happens in stars, and there's plenty of gold in stars already. Just look at them. They're so shiny. That's not a scientific fact. That's just a little joke for you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kranium. This is Jigsaw Radio. We're talking to Dr. Kranium, answering your questions. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. And we're back with Ask Dr. Kranium. Now, Dr. Kranium, you've alluded to the fact, and I've alluded to the fact, and we've all been mentioning the fact that you're trapped in some other plane of existence. And we haven't really delved deeply into that. Do you care to take a moment to talk about what it is you're doing on the other side of time and space?
Well, Tallulah, I was doing an experiment, as I'm wont to do, being a mad scientist and all. And, well, I was attempting to manipulate wormholes. I had gone on a bit of a Farscape bender, followed up by rewatching some Deep Space Nine. I was in just sort of a wormholey headspace. And so I was attempting to open up a bridge between our system and the Kepler system, because, as mentioned before, there's so much of interest in the Kepler system, and the machine. Well, I experimented a bit too rashly, I admit, and well, I fell in. I just fell in. The portal was stable. What I did not know was that I had actually torn a hole through space-time into probability theory and out the other side. And so consequently, what I should have been watching is that classic television program of mad science, Sliders, which posits that jumping from place to place along parallel time streams is a thing that can actually happen. What actually turns out is that's not a thing that can happen. I was joking about watching that terrible show. No, what I've found is that I am just inhabiting various areas along 10 dimensions that all resemble places that I've been before, or seen in magazines, or thought of once, or that I drew as a child. One universe I inhabited actually looked a bit like crayon. The food there was terrible, by the way. Don't go. 1 star, at the best. But mostly, I've been using bits and pieces of technology I found along the way to attempt to create a portal home. A bit like Quantum Leap. As you might imagine, I've had a lot of time to think about television shows while I've been on my own, scouring the universe and the multiverse for any sort of respite. Can we perhaps go back to the questions, please?
Well, certainly. This question is from Grant. He says, "Dear Dr. K, my dog has fleas. Please advise."
Well, Grant, dogs get fleas. I would say that you should probably, and you may not have this amount of time, but you may want to actually train the fleas to perform shows, or, and I can't believe that I've never heard of this in the history of flea training, why not train the fleas to take the dog on walks? I'm sure that the collective intelligence of the fleas, if you let the colony grow large enough, will be greater than that of the dog, and the fleas can steer the dog by biting him on one side of the body so he turns the other direction to try and get away, and biting on the other side to correct for that, and I'm sure that the fleas, given enough time, could actually lead the dog on a walk, let him do his business, bring him back home. How you collect the poop, I'm not entirely sure, but you're the one with the fleas, so I'm going to leave this experiment up to you. Tarla, more questions, please.
Oh, this was a three-part question from Christine. Do you want to answer? Want me to read all three at once, or just?
No, just get it over with.
Okay. Part 1, bees. Part 2, what are your feelings on insoles? And Part 3, what is the largest zoo animal you could take in a fight if it came right down to it?
I think my answer for all three of these questions is the same thing. Bear.
Bear?
Bear. Bees? Bear. What are your feelings on insoles? Bear. What is the largest zoo animal you could take in a fight if it came right down to it? Bear. Next question.
Bear. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Here's another question. So excited you'll be on the show this week. Could you give us an update on your current research? I've been following your work for a while and loved how you revolutionized cephalopod taxonomy and physiology. Very inspiring work. What's next? That's from Not Stalking You. Not Stalking You? Not Stalking You.
Not stalking me. It doesn't sound like you're stalking me. It sounds like a very intelligent and well-informed listener. Yes, well, current research, as before mentioned, mostly trying to not be trapped in a whirlwind tour of every multiversal facet ever imagined. Although I have been tinkering in my off hours with a way of making the Apple Watch not look like a piece of crap. Next question.
Yes, dear Dr. Kranium, magnets, how do they work? This is from Violent J, Shaggy to Dope.
What's up, Violent J? Too dope for the shagginess. Well, magnets, primarily, it's a little electrical. There's some arrows involved. Mostly there's tiny invisible arrows. Magnets, you see, magnets when they eat too much, they emit arrows coming out of either end of them. Now, some of them are flat, so it's coming out of the top and the bottom. Some of them are long and thin, so it's coming out of either side. But mostly these arrows come out in sort of spheres, like area of effect spells, and well, some of them are positively charged, and some of them are negatively charged, and the negative and the positive attract. To be quite honest, magnets are just sort of magic to me. I don't actually. I use them. I use them on a regular basis, spinning magnets, making electricity, copper wire, round metal bars. I don't actually understand magnets. I'm looking at one right now. It's got a paperclip on it. It just seems like levitation to me. Next question.
Okay, dear Dr. Kranium, I want to start breeding my chickens for ancestral dinosaur traits. My goal is to get all the way back to a raptor-like physiology and sell them to the military or take over a country the West doesn't care about. Any advice?
Well, if you ask me, you should just jump through my portal and take over one of these worlds here. There's plenty of worlds that would both be wonderful habitats for large, vicious chickens, and could frankly use the color, because there are many worlds in the multiverse are just sort of beige. It's fascinating how many times I've leapt through a new portal thinking I'll be back in the lab in a jiffy, and no, actually just yet another beige place. Everyone makes fun of Star Trek and like shows for using the same desert location for everything. But as it turns out, that's most of the universe. That same brown rock, sand, occasionally a clump of what wants to be grass when it grows up. Rather depressing, actually. Next question, please.
All right, we got a few more questions for you. Running short on time, so we'll have to do a little speed round here.
Oh, speed round. I hope I get enough points to win the prize at the end.
Dr. Kranium, I'm a big fan of your work. I've been really interested in solar-powered cat toys, so little Mr. Whiskers can play with something on the days I'm away. Has anyone done research into this?
Solar-powered cat toys. That sounds like solar-powered anything. Do you really want your cat to be bored when it's raining? That's all I have to say on that. Next question.
Dr. Kranium, would you please elaborate on what your doctorate is? Oh, you answered this question already. One more question. I think we're almost out of time. Another question. Oh, we've got a follow-up question from Christine. But what type of bear? A grizzly bear? Please say grizzly bear. I may be trapped in a zoo. Please share your technique.
Oh, actually, I was thinking of the standard brown bear. A grizzly bear is a bit too vicious. If you find that you're in a grizzly enclosure, well, I found that typically activating your force bubble is a very good defense. If you don't have access to a force bubble, your taser arm enhancement protocols should go into effect. If that isn't available, come to think of it, I haven't marketed any of those things. Should get on that. Well, good luck with the bear. Next question.
One last question for you, Dr. Kranium. This is from Milton.
Milton?
Yes, this is from Milton. He's saying, Dr. Kranium, when are you coming home? Does that mean anything?
Yes. Milton, hello. I've been trying to contact you. Somehow, I can talk to the radio, but I can't talk to the lab. Okay, that's a lame excuse. I haven't been trying. I'm sorry, Milton. I know we didn't leave on the best terms. But I wasn't avoiding you by jumping in to a trans-dimensional hyperspace swirly thing. I promise I wasn't avoiding you. I did just fall in. Had a lot of time to think, and well, I do miss our banter. I do miss that very much. I'm trying to come home as soon as I can.
Well, Dr. Kranium, hang on. I've got one more follow-up question. Oh, from Milton. Also, do you know where we keep the quarter-inch adapters? I've been looking around for like 6 months and can't find them.
Milton! Would you have you tried the junk drawer? They should be in the junk drawer underneath the dead batteries that we keep meaning to recycle, maybe behind that broken flashlight and the 3 pennies that we keep there for no reason. Just look there.
Well, Dr. Kranium, that's about all we have time for Ask Dr. Kranium. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with all of your research, and we hope to see you home very soon.
Thank you, Turner. It's been a pleasure.
This is Tara Gracie for Jigsaw Radio. Thanks for joining us.